Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. And I'm so excited to start back with live Pratt lectures. We've had a hiatus of the Pratt lecture series for a number of years due to COVID, so we're so thankful to be doing this again in person. And I'm just so grateful that you could all come out for the talk tonight. I'm going to just read off my phone, so bear with me. Mount Allison is located on the ancestral unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people in the Greater Territory of Mi'kma'ki. And of course, we're so grateful to live and work and study on this land and so privileged to be here in Sackville. The Pratt Visiting Artist Lecture Series was established and is generously supported by the Mount Allison University class of 1957. The purpose of the Pratt Visiting Artist Lecture Series is to contribute to broadening the appreciation and understanding of the role of art, as well as to enrich the liberal arts education experience at Mount Allison University. The intent of the series is to enrich and support the fine arts program and the programming at the Owens Art Gallery, while also offering an art experience to the whole of Mount Allison community and the general public. I'm so excited to introduce and to announce that this year we are very happy to be hosting artist Katherine Knight as the 2023 Pratt Lecturer. Katherine Knight is recognized for her landscape-based photographic works and documentary films on art and culture, amongst many other things. And in 2000, Katherine received the Duke and Duchess of York Prize from the Canada Council, recognizing excellence in photography. In 2006, Katherine founded Sight Media Incorporated to create films on artists and creative processes in relation to experiences of place. Sight Media's award-winning films have played worldwide through festivals, television broadcasts, and post-secondary distribution. Knight's photographic works are held in many public and corporate collections, including the Canadian Museum of Contemporary Photography, Museum London, the Department of Foreign Affairs, Banff Centre for the Arts, and the Canada Council Art Bank. In conjunction with her practice, Knight has held several administrative posts and has worked as an educator and as the Visual Arts Award Officer at Canada Council from 1989 to 1991, and as Dean of Fine Arts at OCAD from 1996 to 2000. And after that, she taught at the Visual Art Department at York University, and now she is here in Nova Scotia, just next door, and living in Pictou. And we're so glad that you could make the trip here to speak with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Katherine Knight.
Thank you very much. How do I turn the lights down? We forgot about that one. Dark is good, or almost dark is good, because then we can see the images. Yeah. Is it weird? I guess, yes, these are almost the emergent. They'll light up the work. They'll keep it light. Okay, so, and I'm thrilled to be here. It's wonderful, actually, to get an invitation to come and talk. I don't miss teaching, but it is nice to be asked to come and share. So that's a really nice thing. And just a warning, my hyperlinks inside of my PowerPoint are not picking up. So when I need to show a clip, I'm going to navigate to QuickTime. So it might be a little bumpy. So we'll just see how it goes. So I am going to talk about my film work, and I am going to talk about my photographic work. And when I show film clips, they're usually 2 minutes or under, so they'll be short. And but I thought that I'd start by sharing with you a work in progress. Always dangerous, but let me do that. And it's going to be a story about this boat, which is a goose hunting boat. So definitely a post-Confederation kind of settler artifact from a time of big chaos, really, because it's a time when goose hunting was more like killing machines, really. They were out mowing down everything available. And you actually have one of these in Sackville in someone's barn. Colin McKinnon has one hiding in his barn, and there's only 4 of these boats in the Maritimes, and this is the nicest one. It's at the Maritime Museum in Halifax. So I'm going to flip to my first video, and I'm going to ignore those eject buttons. Here we are back in Sackville, the barn of Colin McKinnon, and I'm exposing you to a work in progress. So bear with me, and we'll view this at full screen. And, you know, like, how do we start a body of work? You know, it starts in some serendipitous moment. I always think you have to be ready, you have to be alert, and then you can pick up something. And I had a kind of magnetic attraction to this beautiful goose boat. Not his goose boat, but the one in the museum. I had a magnetic pull to it, and I wanted to make something with it. So, what to do? Play my little video. So we've got, we know there's some goose boats around, and we know there's one in the Halifax Museum. Hard to photograph, I can't do much with it. Great to look at. So, I've bonded with a fresh young graduate from Queen's Digital. We've built a 3D model. This is it on the computer. And Nick Roca, that's my collaborator, he's color-coded the parts so we can get it to move. He's playing with it. He's going to put it in some water. He's going to put it in different landscapes. He's going to take us for a tour inside of the boat. So, you know, this is just beginnings. We're hoping we'll arrive at a finished product by May, and to bring this odd and quirky object to life. You can only generate a 1/4 horsepower, no matter how hard you work. Make sure when you step out the boat, you don't tip it over. We know the boat's history. It was definitely a killing machine. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of geese mowed down. The 1917, things started to change a bit. Of course, if you were a goose, you were going to lose your feathers, and you're probably going to lose your eggs. However, we do have faith that things might change a bit, that the times will change, and people might become aware, a bit more aware. Hunters, and first it was hunters who began to realize that they needed good habitats. 1917, they began to bring in legislation. We had the Migratory Bird Act, and this is a brant goose. Brant goose go through Miragamish, which is by me. That's where this goose boat comes from, Miragamish. Brant geese, that's a beautiful little brant geese. And there's not that many left, and there's not that many left because in 1930, the eelgrass died. We had slime mold, we had a bit of a warming temperature for a few years. 90% of the eelgrass across North America disappeared, and it was a terrible tragedy. Now we are beginning, it did come back, so the eelgrass gradually came back, but the poor brant geese never did. 10 degree. In fact, they never came back to Miragamish. So the goose boat, which was very good at what it did, I mean, first of all, it became semi-legal in 1917, but the nail in the coffin really was when the eelgrass died, the brant geese disappeared, like really diminished in number, and they, the ones that were left changed their migratory paths, never to come back to Miragamish. So, you know, we had this beautiful artifact, or odd artifact, that was almost too good at what it did. And it was impacted with the Migratory Bird Act, and then by the eelgrass die-off, it disappeared into someone's barn, and then eventually came to rest at the museum. So we're going to bring that story to life through dialogue, a script, and through images. about 50% will be the 3D model of the boat, and the other components are a dialogue gathered from experts from different fields. Now, let me see if I can close this. Oh, okay. This is looking more promising. So, I've got a real artifact, I've got a 3D model, I've got a place, Marigamish, I've got the Migratory Bird Act, I've got eelgrass, I've got a museum, and that's where we stand right now, and hopefully by May we'll have a finished work. Anyways, an adventure, so we're started. And so I wanted to start there because that's where my thoughts are these days. Of course, I think we all like thinking about what's pressing in our lives, so that's it. But I will talk now a bit about site media, which I established with my partner David Craig, who's here, in 2006. And it was when I was deep into teaching in a room like this. And I just got so fed up. I loved Art 21, the PBS American TV series about artists. And I used to show clips from Art 21 all the time until I got really irritated because there was no Canadian content. They have gotten a bit better, and they do show films about artists, but I really just got to a point where I thought, let's try and make one. And luckily I had a friend, a filmmaker, Marcia Conley, and I said, come with me, let's go make a film. I had a connection to what was then called Baffin Island, but the Baffin Island print shop, Kingat. And through correspondence with them, I realized that we could go and we could make a film about Annie Putagook. I'm not going to show that clip right now. I'll move on to something else. But so in 2006, we made our first documentary film. To make a documentary film, you pretty well have to incorporate a company and kind of set up a structure, otherwise you'll never get enough cash. But, what I like to do now is just show a first clip from Still Max. This is the last film that I just finished. Well, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now, but it feels fresh still. So now I'm going to go to the desktop and find Still Max. And actually in this clip I introduced it a bit, so I'll let my virtual self introduce it.
And so there I am standing outside Princess Margaret. I've just heard that I've got prostate cancer, and I'm kind of devastated.
Just left the doctor's office here at the hospital, and the results are back. There's a whole bunch of kind of cores that are cancerous. We're gonna have to figure something out here. This does not look good. So can you bring the gang together?
Why do I want to keep my prostate? I'm possessive.
In 2017, Max Dean, the artist, told me he had prostate cancer. And he said he wanted to make a series of works that were about his body. He asked me if I could make a film. I was really reluctant. I knew what this project would take out of me. And then Max told me his plan. He said, I'm gonna build a room-sized tumor, and then I'm gonna chop it in half. Okay. I was also standing there in Max's fantastic studio, this cavernous, big space. And it's down at the Docklands in Toronto, an area that's being demolished and reconfigured. It felt like that environment, the area, the studio, and Max's body itself, it just felt like everything was at risk. And I knew I wanted to make this film. And I'm a visual artist, and I knew that I could learn from Max. And Max, you have showed me so much.
The world is as sharp as the edge of a knife. You can walk to the edge, and you can look over the edge, and sometimes that's as far as it ever should go.
To make a film about an artist, you go deep into their world, which is amazing and so rewarding. By the time Max was over, it took about 3 years start to finish to make the film. It arose at the beginning because Max came to me and said, you know, I have cancer and I want to make a film about making art about cancer. And I really couldn't say no to that because it was just such an amazing gift to enter into that space with him. So we had a remarkable journey, interrupted by COVID, but we did get to the finish line. And by the end of it, I was so tired. I think I had 2 years of nightmares about cancer and about Max's work. And I was very thrilled to kind of be able to go to my home in Nova Scotia, which I've had for 23 summers, now 3 full-time years, but I was very happy to go back to my home and to reconnect with my camera, just me, without having to really kind of maneuver. There's so many decisions that I find so difficult in filmmaking, so many threads. So it was a true delight to go back to my studio and to begin to make photographs. The films, when you make these films about artists, and I'm making a film about creative process, and I'm trying to do it from his perspective and his voice, you enter in so deeply that you end up carrying away parts of that person's practice with you. And in Max's studio, I fell in love with all these overalls he had. So the first thing I had to do was get myself some overalls, which I did. And I think also because Max was interacting with these figures to tell the story of his cancer. So somehow this idea of posing and, you know, like being still or enacting something really attracted me. So I began to make these photographs and always kind of in the landscape around me, in my studio. So these are 2 separate ones. One I've got a tree branch and the other is just a photographic panel of snowbank I made. And I sort of envision continuing to do these. I love doing them, and I get a lot out of them. And it's been so great for me to reconnect with my photographic practice, which never left, but kind of rumbled along, perhaps at a slower bit of a pace. And it was while I was doing these that I began to realize that it connected right back to the earliest work I ever did. These would be in 1978, second year art school in Nova Scotia, and a series of black and white photographs. And of course, for all the analog photographers, you know, if you wanted to put language into your photograph, you had to do it with overlays. And so a series of photographs where I sewed fabric in a white shirt and I kind of posed on the landscape. So it was quite wonderful for me to go back and to realize that so many decades later, these threads from early on still resonated so deeply. And it had even been amplified by making Max. Interacting with Max reignited the sense of play, you know, and made me say to myself, I could do that. And here's the earliest one I could find. This is in 1978, It's the only photograph I have left over from a performance piece I did at NASCAT called I Am Not a Duck, I Am a Real Woman. And it had a script, which I no longer have, but I think it's odd that I'm making a goose or duck hunting boat piece now. And I've tried to recreate this photograph, so I haven't got quite right yet, but I'm looking forward to making some crouching photographs in my studio. So I'd like to flip back now to another clip from the film Coop with painter Wanda Coop.
There's an article years ago that I read about how the blind see. And I was struck by the description. When I'm actually painting, I'm painting something I'm seeing in my head, not something that exists in the world. I paint it and then I look at it. I have a sort of voracious appetite for images that I know I can translate. I can make them static.
So when you're making films, there's a moment where it kind of turns, and you say, okay, well, that's it. I'm going to make that film, and I'll make it because I've got to. And part of it, I think with Wanda, I kind of look back to a moment when I went to visit her. She is a longtime friend. I met her when I was in maybe 28, when I had a job at a gallery, and they sent me down to pick her up. It was a train station. She walked through the train station, and I spied her, and I thought, oh, I want to be your friend. Anyways, and a friendship started that went on for decades and decades. And I was visiting Wanda, and I was standing in her studio, and it was like unbelievable because it's this big rectangle, right? And she had this garage door mechanism that lowered her 17 by 15 foot canvases down to the floor and back up. It was magnificent, and it was like, whoa, whoa. And it was like light and everything. And it viscerally brought back this experience I'd had many years ago going on a freighter boat trip. And I said to Wanda, we could make a film and we could take you for a voyage. And a voyage is important for Wanda because when she was in her 20s, she had this van and they kitted it out as a camper. And then she and her partner would get in the van and they would drive across Canada and she would set up her tent and she would paint. So she painted her way across Canada for 6 or 7 years. And I think she got married in Fredericton on one of those or something, passing through. But so this idea of a voyage right away became a structure to build a film on, and which we did. And but it was great because I had this previous experience that I could pull on, which was this trip. I did a boat voyage in 2002 along the St. Lawrence in a freighter boat, and I kind of photographed out the right, out the left, and straight ahead, and then compiled them into a into a photographic panel. They're all analog photographs. And I could do it because of this guy right there, with the binoculars in the middle. That's Bob Wilkie, and he was a painter or an artist at NASCAD. He was a student when I was a student. So everyone who's a student, get to know your fellow students, because you never know what they can do for you in later life. Because Bob, he became a sea captain, and he continued to paint, he's continued to make art. But when I wanted to do a photographic trip on a freighter boat, all I had to do was call Bob. And when we wanted to do a film with Wanda and take her on a voyage, all I had to do was call Bob. And I said, Bob, do you know Wanda Coop? And he said, sure do. And there we were. And it was Marcia Connolly, myself, and Wanda having this immense and amazing experience. 7 days, 3.5 up, 3.5 back, and no one barely slept because there was so much beautiful stuff happening outside. And sometimes you could hear Wanda, Marcia and I ganged in one little room, and Marcia and Wanda slept in the weight room where the men worked out. But we could hear Wanda's door opening in the middle of the night, and Marcia would go, quick, we gotta go. So it was a beautiful trip. But these are earlier images. For me, it's been nice to try and see my photographic work in context of my film work, and to understand more fully how they blend together. One of those portholes is my room. So that boat trip wasn't the only one. Before going on the boat trip with Wanda, I think there's about 3 voyages. So the first one being a long freighter voyage, and then this voyage is really a small voyage, and it is in my neighborhood in Pictou. It's a small boat that will take you out to Pictou Island, and I loved going on this boat. I just go back and forth, and I photographed the buoys that demarcated the route to the island and back. So it's a very simple sequence of photographs of the buoys. And strangely enough, a year after I did this, I went out to go look at them again, and they were all gone because the digital revolution hit buoys. And of course, they took all the bell buoys and the beautiful floating buoys and the strange buoys and replaced them with little digital bobbers. So really, I feel like I have the only record of the buoys. And I'm going to show you. So also just this idea of making a cup, having different interpretations. Like with one, I made the black and white photographs. I've always made these black and white photographs. But then with this piece, I also did a little video piece, which was a 3-screen projection. And we'll open that with QuickTime. That's my favorite one, the little sled buoy. They've gone the way of buoy graveyards now. But I think these objects, they're so, they're really about the paradigm shift from analog to digital, which I feel, having been a photographer trained in the 70s, that that hounded me or followed me or enriched me, however you want to feel about it. I think when I was teaching, I sometimes felt hounded by the digital world because, of course, it was too tough for me to adapt, but I did eventually. But I just want to also go to one more voyage which I took, which is actually, I guess, the foundation voyage of this idea of voyaging, because it's 1978, so it's the same time I was a second-year art student, and Robert Frank came to the school, and he happened to be there the night I did my duck performance, and he said, "Okay, you make good photographs, now quit school, and you should go and make art." So I tried to do what he said, and I quit school, and I got on a boat and went to Labrador, and I made, I think I did make, for me, the first kind of real significant series of work of which I feel very proud, and it's a simple series of 5 silver gelatin prints, again, to put text overlay. They're just, done with making letraset on, very analog. And it's just a sequence of 5 photographs that just recount this encounter I had when we took the freighter boat up. At one point we got to Cartwright and the boat stopped, and I said to the captain guy, "Well, how long are you stopped here for?" He said, "Just half an hour, but if you want to get off, we're going up to the next place and we're coming back. So if you want to stop, you can be here for 5 hours." So I got off, and it was a very strange thing. I got off on the dock and I looked over and I saw this incredible, beautiful pile of, the teepee pile of firewood. We've all seen those in Newfoundland, people who do the teepee piles of firewood. I spied one, so I thought, well, I'll go over there because I've got my camera, I could do something. So I walk over there and this woman walks out to me, Blanche, looking exactly like that. And she takes me into her house and we have an encounter. And then I came away with these beautiful photographs, and then I also combined them with nighttime photographs in Harrington Harbor, where I also stopped for a bit. And so it's a bit of a whimsical thing, but it's not that whimsical, really. The story basically, it says like that basically winter's coming, but who cares, we're all ready. And not to worry, get in a flurry. Do not tire, light the fire. And there's one other one I can't remember. And then the final one, winter is just a splinter, which of course, when you live in up in Labrador, it's not really just a splinter, it's pretty serious stuff. But I think it's interesting to me now that my desire to work with words and stories, even if they're not very full stories, was definitely there early on. And so I think that gives me a lot of leeway now to say, I can fully go with it. I can enjoy my words and I can enjoy the photographs, and I can also just not try. It doesn't have to make total sense. I'll go for it. I want to talk about this film. I am showing 2 films, and one of them is Wanda's film, and also this one on Colette Urban. And Colette was a deep friend when I was at NASCAD. In my 20s, and we stayed friends. And this is a film that Marcia Connolly, myself, and Colette really made together by spending a month at Colette's home in Newfoundland. And it really came out of, it began when Colette told me that she wanted to make a film about her home in Newfoundland. She was a come from away, she didn't come from Newfoundland, but she had found her spiritual home, where she belonged, she felt was there. And she had this very amazing place. And I'll show you the clip. And when she anyways, so just this idea that she could make it work. She told me, I'm going to make a piece of art. It's called Belvedere, and I'm gonna wear my house on my head, and I'm gonna ride an elephant because elephant's a metaphor for Newfoundland, and elephants love home, and I love home. So you can't say no to that.
Limb on the tree, tree in the field, way down in that beautiful field. What was on to that limb? There was a beautiful nest. Nest on a limb, limb on a tree, tree in the field, way down in that beautiful field. What was into that nest? There was a beautiful egg. Egg in the nest, nest on a limb, limb on a tree, tree in the field, way down in that beautiful field.
When I started the project Belvedere, I knew that I wanted to make a model of my home to put encase my head. Belvedere is a term that means a house with a view. Newfoundland homes in the early turn of the century, they would quite often be moved either on the water or on the ice. They would move homes, especially during resettlement. That was a big thing that happened. Women are often connected to the home, either physically or symbolically, and that was something that I was interested in thinking about with this work, so that the female is trapped within the house, gazing out at the world. And for me, Meadows is that house. And I carry that view with me when I'm not here. Man,
One more. Go back.
there are reasons you don't reinstall some work, I think. I can do it with bubble wrap. I'll do that
Sure
later.
that don't look like a toe?
Yeah,
Huh?
Bart Simpson's told me.
I don't know. If I had a toe like that, I'd
Be in trouble. Yep, the big guys finally come home.
When we were making the film, there was a couple of moments of panic because I realized that Colette did not actually have really good documentation. And this film has become really important because I think 2 years after we finished the film, Colette got cancer and died. And the film really captures, it's a testament to her life, it's a testament to her work, and it's in the end the only really, no, there are some good catalogs, and there was a catalog raisonné, and there was an excellent show, but having the film has become really important to those of us who loved her and the work she made. The other thing that happened when we were making this film is Colette had she actually had 3 houses in Newfoundland, and each one was spectacularly weird in its own way, and not fancy, none of them, but she had also an amazing ability to collect objects and beautiful, weird stuff. And she decided that I should have some objects. And she took me shopping, and we bought this model boat. Oh, yes, we bought this model boat. And it's huge. It's this big. No, it's actually bigger. It's 6 feet. It's 6 feet. And I remember I didn't tell my partner how much I spent on it because it was a lot of money. And I put it in Colette's barn where it lived for a long time. And it didn't really come back to me in Pictou till after her death, when all her belongings had to be sorted out, and we got it onto a truck and moved it to my house. I don't know what it was, but Colette has said to me, I think you should start collecting some model boats. And so she got me to get one. And that was like, it was almost 6 years after I took this photograph. But eventually I did get around to getting some model boats. And I also began to photograph them. And I was working quite hard on this project just before I did my last film, Max. And I had the illusion I could work on both at the same time, which was not true, because as soon as Max took over my life, the model boats went back into the camera bag. But it has been an ongoing project. And in fact, I see the goose boat now as the next chapter in this collection of photographs. And these are all photographs of model boats and placed in the landscape. There's sort of three categories of them. I'm taking them into the landscape, placing them in the landscape, photographing them. I'm also photographing them in museums and in people's homes where I find them, and as display objects. But they're also quite large. When I'm photographing, I'll do two shots. Like, usually I'm always photographing two shots, one like so that I can get extra scale, because my camera will give me a 50 megabyte file, but I want more. So I usually do horizon line down, and like if I have sky, that's an extra digital file that I'm bringing together to get scale. So I'm not like digitally compositing the scenes, but I'm definitely getting the bang for my buck by making a bigger file. And so these are really important to get up to scale, and I like to print them at about 5 feet high. And then they get really weird, because all of a sudden you realize that the steering wheel's a thumbtack, and that the wave is a drop of rain. But you need scale to see them. And so I'm photographing them also in winter and summer. And I'm keeping a kind of log of the boats. And my plan is like a book, that I'll make a book of model boats. So that's what I'm heading towards. And it was an odd experience. So this project really had me fully immersed. Oh, we're already at 8. Am I okay? Okay, I am close to the end, but we'll keep going. When a project has you fully immersed, it's really good not to stop, because to restart is tough. And in fact, the goose boat is really about me finding a new way into this project, because it kind of went on ice for 3 years, on stop for 3 years. So it's been nice to reconnect to it through this new approach with the goose boats. But again, I feel like it's connected to the buoys, it's connected to this pre-digital, a paradigm shift between analog and digital. I think it really is grounded in my background as a black and white photographer, and really having to kind of remake myself when I had to go digital. So when David and I set up the company in 2006, I also began to work really closely with Marcia Conley. So she came with me to make the first film, and our company's made about 7, possibly 7 films, and David has directed one, produced and directed 2, and then I've solo directed some, but out of 6 films that I've made, 5 have really integrated Marcia. So she's been a really big part of my approach to filmmaking, and indeed mentored me in how to be a filmmaker. And on the first film, where I solely produced, I think then I began to realize, like, kind of learn from her how to do an interview, how to think through the film, etc. And I'll show this clip from Spring and Arno. Both Marcia and I feel like this is a bit of a gem for us. It's the kind of film, it's a film we look at and we think, well, we probably wouldn't want to change anything, which is a nice feeling because you might not always feel like that. And Spring and Arno is Spring Pearl, but Arno Mags, two artists in Toronto.
I've been carrying around the fact, ever since I met Arno, that there's a 25-year difference.
It was 1973 or so. I was 47 years old, and I decided I wanted to be an artist. From that moment, I was imbued with energy.
I recall one instance in my very young life where I woke up and I was very concerned that I didn't know how to take my next breath. I think that was maybe the first moment where I thought living was highly precarious business.
Well, we met when I was 60, 1986. Yes. She came to my, you came to my birthday party.
Yes.
Uninvited.
No.
I didn't even know about you.
No.
But I took note very quickly.
I think it's quite interesting being with Arno because we're both people who are into me, but what happens is because we're both me people, we cancel each other out. So it's understood Arno has an ego, it's understood I have an ego, it's understood we live for our work, that's all clear. So we kind of drop that with each other.
So I saw this book of Nadar's, and it just gave me that idea that I could do a similar series, and I'd have Pierre, the photographer. But then when I got into it and started working with the things, somehow it became more self-referential.
For me, I don't disassociate myself with the fact that these are human remains and that they belong to a person, and that person was part of a family, and that their family is still alive and they will be seeing the work that I make.
That last piece is a work that Spring did where she worked with the cremated remains, first of animals and then of actual people, and did portraits of the ashes rising. Arno never got to see the film. He was 86 and he knew he was dying, but he didn't tell us. And he died before we had the film finished, and Marcia did a final interview with him, audio only, when he was really dying, and we also showed him in his hospital room rushes of the film. So, but it's odd too. We now have 3 films of people who just aren't with us: Annie Pudaguk, Arno, and Colette. So I think they need to be made, these films, I think. So I wanted to go back because to the very first experience I had with moving image, and with a piece I did that I started right after I finished art school and moved to Montreal from Halifax, and didn't know what to do, so I decided to take my camera and go and tour places that might have something to do with that would resonate with me as a young woman, and I decided to tour convents. So I began to tour convents in Montreal, and I had this amazing experience where I knocked on the door of a convent, and I said, you know, I'm interested in the history, and it was a Sister Quigley, and she says, would you like a tour? And I said yes, and she took me all over the convent. It was the Congregation Notre Dame. Notman photographed that building at the turn of the century, and but then she said to me, now would you like to go see the crypt? And I didn't even know what a crypt was, but she took me to a crypt, and that's later in my line of slides, so I'll show it to you when we get there. But she took me to the crypt, and I don't think Notman ever got to the crypt. I think I got to the crypt because I was a 24-year-old young woman. Maybe they thought I wanted to join, who knows, but they shared with me in a very deep way. And I took this portrait. So it was a piece that was overwhelming. I had an overwhelming experience because I photographed the crypt, and I had a Minolta Autocord, $75. I had a tripod. I didn't have a light meter. I shot one roll of film, so I had 12 exposures, and then I was mind blown. Like, now what? What do I do now? You know, what do I do now? My negatives are shitty. What can I do? And they weren't shitty. One was good, but I didn't know what to do. And so in the end, I decided that I better make Marguerite's outfit and wear it. And in wearing it, I began to feel she was so enclosed, right? She was so enclosed, like, it was like once you put the hood on, you couldn't hear anything. And so that experience kickstarted this process, and I did my first solid piece of writing. I think writing has been a part of my practice, and I did my first solid piece of writing, which was a prose open flow kind of text piece that was my biography of Marguerite as if I was Marguerite, and I called it I Am Marguerite. And later on I put it into a bit of a slide dissolve using my images, so I'm going to just play that. I also want to say, keep your work, you know, everyone who's in their first, second, third, fourth year, keep it, because you need to be able to go back and check it out, and you need to be able to see the threads, because I think sometimes your very first work that you make is about it really is deep about yourself, and it matters. No, we missed our other stereo sound. It's two voices that come from two separate sides of the room. But anyways, you get the point. I am Marguerite, first teacher of Montreal, first uncloistered nun of Canada. And at the very end, I am root black, wet after rain, and etc. Anyways, I think that was an important piece for me. And I think in the end, actually, you know, it was also a moment where you realize how long it can take to sort out a body of work. Like that, I had the experience, I took some photographs, I didn't think they were worthwhile, and there was a worthwhile one, and it was this one. This is the crypt. So she took me into this building, and it was the barn in the back of the convent, and she opened up the barn door, and she said, "Don't step off the path. The ground is unstable." They buried them 3 deep, and they raked. All the dirt was raked, and every cross had language on it. And there was 3 pathways, one on the right, center, and the other side. I don't really have many more images. I was able to save some language off the signs and stuff, but most of my negs were underexposed, etc. But it was this very quiet space full of memories, and the sisters used to go there to remember their past. And I stuck this slide in. It's not associated with it's not a formal part of my Marguerite work. This image is photographed 10 years later, but I think it's like a solo image in my oeuvre, but it really adapts well to Marguerite. It's an image I took when I was doing residency at Saint-Jean-Port-Joli, and when the woman who ran the residency came in, and she said, "I found the perfect prop for you." And it was this 19th century coffin, which I put on blue styrofoam. Because it's black and white, you don't see the styrofoam. And I put it on the rocks, and at high tide it floated, and at low tide it didn't. And I took that photograph. So, but this crypt, this beautiful crypt full of language, I think it really talked to me. And the idea that the nuns would go in there and also visit with the memories of their sisters. So circling right back to the beginning, I'm almost done. And I think that in Pictou, in Caribou Harbor, where we live, that I'm really trying to connect with a sense of play, because I think now I realize that's been part of my work. And I think Max really encouraged me to look at that. And also the idea of words, if I'm stuck or something, but I can always do a word photograph. And sometimes, you get these phrases that you can just play with. So "never give up" is one that I take out for little photo jaunts. And then in honor of all the swimmers in the audience, this is a piece I actually haven't been able to finish it, but I'm close to finishing it. And it's going to be a boxed set of accordion folds. Oh, this one's missing some. So it's going to be a box set of 5 like accordion folds, and under the idea of never give up. And they're images that I've collected over a couple of years with a cheap underwater camera, and in swims, often with friends. So somehow getting the final order has been difficult, but I hope to get it finished this month, because I'm doing a show in Montreal, and I'm hoping to actually launch it as a kind of multiple, the idea that I can make a little object. And I think the films took me way away from exhibiting and stuff, so I'm trying to claw my way back. And I love the idea of having some little things that I can, put out in the world without having to do exhibitions, though everyone loves exhibitions too. But, so, swim. Okay, thank you. The best best part of the film is when you get to show it to an audience, because you feel the audience. And, you know, there's those terrible moments at your openings where, you know, well, there's no darkness to hide in. And there's sometimes, you know, polite conversation. But you don't actually get the collective vibe and buzz. And also, why? I don't know. But I must say that it blew me away to make a film and then show it in a screening, and you could feel people. You could actually feel how people were responding. And of course, the other wonderful thing about making a film is that it's a digital file, and it can go. I mean, you still need an apparatus, and you still need money, which I think is a much underrated thing. Our budgets have always been really tiny, really tight, and ideally, you have money and you push your film out there with and you get it to lots of places. So because films can do that, you know, it's not like the trauma of your studio storage. Definitely not. And it is definitely a very amazing and comprehensive feeling to share a film with an audience. And it does make you want to do it. Mostly. Though I do find it a challenging medium for me. There's too many decisions. It's a bit, it's got too many options. And I do find it really reassuring to be back making my photographs where there's not quite as many decisions that have to be made right now. I never feel like I'm directing. I think it depends who you talk to. I would say that making a film, it teaches you these incredible skills though, because when I used to be an artist, I would say, I'm going to make a body of work. Here I go, and off I go. And you discover, and the work builds. With film, you have to articulate right up the front. So even if you're not directing, you have to solidify the idea in a way I never did with art practice. You have to write a synopsis. You have to be able to say what the film is. You have to persuade your funders that you have to give them a picture of the film. So Spring and Arno was like I described it as a figure eight. Here's Arno. Here's Spring. Here's Arno and Spring. Here's Arno and Spring. In love, collecting, France. That's where they connect and that's where they cross over. So I think with film, it's like a reverse. Like in art making, you start from this tiny point. I'm going to make a body of work, and you've got some stuff, and then it grows, and then you get somewhere. Filmmaking, you gotta start out at the elbows. You know, it's like you have to articulate a theme. You gotta have you really have to put some building blocks in place, because it takes money, and it takes people, and but yeah, I've never felt like a director. I felt like a filmmaker, but I've also been I've really enjoyed, or I've actually been good at articulating a project, and I have good writing skills to put it into language. So I've been very lucky at securing the funds to do it, and being able to put out a framework, you know, like, we're going to go for a 7-day journey, and maybe Wanda doesn't. I said, perhaps Wanda, you don't see color the same way other people did. We're going to cover that in the film, you know. So we had eye exams and stuff like that. So you have to be able to articulate goalposts up front, right at the beginning, and then if you do that, maybe you don't have to direct if it's all about creative practice and the artist. you know, you have to have a fantastic cinematographer, and you have to get your core interviews. And with Max, before I started the film, I really didn't want to make the film because we just finished a big film. It was a lot of work, and it was like 3 years, so much work, and I felt I wanted my practice. I said, I want to get back to my studio. I don't know if I can do this. And I said, let's do a test. I'll do a test interview, Max. So I did a gray backdrop, sat him down. We had an excellent cinematographer, and I prepped for quite a while beforehand. I went through all of he gave me notes about what he wanted to do. And then I asked him, we did an 1.5 hour interview. That 1.5 hour interview, it ends up being the core in the film. And that was done before I committed to doing the film. But at the end of that interview, I thought, God, he's so articulate. He's so good. I think we can do this. But then you get into the dilemma of what's the content of the film? Well, I want to make the content Max's creative process. So you're stuck. You have to go and just observe and document. I'm not really directing, though sometimes you'll ask for certain things and you'll say, and then we quickly realized with Max that we had to actually restage some things because they had to be lit different. Like he was going to do tableau photographs. We said, we'll just shoot when you do your photographs. Well, the lighting didn't work for us, so we had to restage things. And with Colette, we got her to restage her performances. So I think in my case, I would say, you know, the word director, I've never known what that is, so it's been uncomfortable for me a bit, but I certainly am proud of putting the work in up front, articulating enough that I'm a very good starter. I don't like the end. Oh, which ones? The ones with language or the boat photographs?
Both.
Both.
Getting so close to the water surface.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, when I was photographing the model boats in water, I think one of the reasons I did it so densely, and then just lately I haven't had the willpower to do it, because I used to take my Canon 5D, which is a very good camera, you know, it's like a $5,000 camera. I was actually like going into the ocean and I would go up to here and I'd be like, and then I'd say to Dave, just push the boat over. Push the boat over. Sometimes I have two people pushing. But if I was doing it in the water, it was actually dangerous. And I just got my camera recleaned at Vistec, and I said there's some dust I can't get rid of up the upper right corner. And he said, well, it's not dust, it's some sort of goo or something. I don't know what it is. I can't get it out of there. And I said, well, maybe it's like I did use it very, 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 very close to the ocean for like 2-year period. But very carefully. And I always underexpose it when I'm working digitally. I want to underexpose. I don't want to blow out my highlights. I'm very, very careful. I'm usually using a shutter aperture, and I hate my Canon ISO, so I try and stay at 200. And then if I am working in low light conditions, I shift to my Sony, which has better in low light, and but I am really, 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 really careful and very careful with my focus point, and I always capture some extra sky because I want to get as big a file as I can, and I will shoot hundreds of images to get a single shot. But it's a lot of fun. And I do also like posing the boats, like, outside. And then of course, always like kind of really being careful in my, where I got my camera, my perspective, and I'm pretty patient. Are you a photographer? Yeah. And also I would say that even though I am working digitally, and I would actually not go back to analog. I don't have the patience. I don't think I have the time. I can't believe we did that. But I do approach digital photography with an analog perspective. Like I don't go into, like most of my images are not photoshopped to change things. You know, I do adjustments in RAW. I'll put skies together to make an image bigger, but I don't go in and create an image digitally. Though it is, you know, now I'm working with a 3D model, so maybe I'll change my mind after that experience. I don't know. It's the ambient sound is the bell buoy, ding, ding, ding. And we did collect ambient sound, and but I hired Rick Sachs, who's a percussionist and a composer, and I gave him all the ambient sound and asked him to do something, and I thought he did a beautiful, beautiful job. And I'm not a musical person. I'm a very big dolt in music, but I have been lucky in purposefully getting good scores. So Colette Urban, I did research on Newfoundland traditional songs, and so the song that's sung there, it's like tree in the hat, bird in the stump, blah blah blah. It's a cumulative round thing, and I hired this fantastic musician who came with his sister, and they recorded them in Colette's house, which had no electricity. And he said, best recording studio anywhere. So, and then all of our films have had excellent, excellent composer done scores. You can't beat that. And the Goose Boat's gonna have some sort of score when we get there too. I'm really glad you like the blue buoys. I mean, it's pretty 206, so it's like, you know, video, but and that's and again, you know, like it's like a document of an artifact that no longer really exists.
Well, I thought when you said that it was like they're huge things.
Yeah.
And where are they all?
Well, in downtown Pictou, the bell buoy is in front of a museum on the ground. And they left one bell buoy, but anything that, like they left a couple of big special ones, but you know, definitely all those ones I used to love going by, like the sled buoys, they're all gone. Which means that navigation has shifted too. And you know, it's not an analog system, it's a satellite bounce. Yeah, and I didn't catch all of it, but I think you said, like, I am frustrated. I was frustrated about there not being enough content on Canadian artists, and there is more now. There are more short films being made on Canadian artists now. When we started in 2006, I was really pissed off. I don't know if you were teaching people who were teaching them, but there really wasn't very much, and the American market is just so much bigger, you know, and there is such a deep library of films by artists, and also in Europe also. It's been very hard for us to have our films shown in Europe, and difficult also to get them into the States too. I mean, at core level, our markets are so different. So, and the expectations, the habits, the methods of approaching things. But I think that's changing. I mean, your generation is so much, is so ingenious at also finding new markets for your work, for having platforms, and, you know, whether it's doing something on social media that ends up being a shareable item with some colleagues in Berlin. You know, I think that there's more younger Canadian artists pushing their work out overseas now than there was in my generation, for sure. And you do, and that's really great, because our market really is too tiny. I would say that all you need is a fan club of 20, though. Which should be achievable.
Any other questions before we wrap up? All right, well, thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for coming.